Hi Granada family. I would like to introduce you guys to Calvin and Lorena Hamstra. They've been members at Granada for quite a long time. They serve in many capacities in our church, including our youth ministry. And they have two wonderful boys in our children's ministry as well. But God put it on their heart to be foster parents. And I thought that was a very beautiful and curious and difficult thing to do. And so I want us to learn their story of how that journey happened. So Calvin, Lorena, where did the idea come from? Why make that commitment to be a foster parent?
So I think it started with us wanting to make an impact, and I feel like God called us in the way that He wrote both of our stories, and how I grew up and how Lorena grew up, that He caused in both of us to say, I want to use you in this way. So I want you to, and we've used this in the church as well, being part of the youth group, helping kids there. I think that just helped us realize, hey, God's taking the tools that He's given you, and He wants you to use those to raise your own children, but also have an impact on children in a time of need as they're going through difficult times, as their parents are needing time to get things back together, and just to be a stable influence in a child's life.
Lorena, what from your life kind of made you feel prepared, or maybe not prepared is the right word, but made you think that this was something that you could mentor others in?
So I think that in our hearts, we're very attracted to serving the youth, that's the calling that we have. And last year in August, we took in my sister, and she stayed with us for the school year. And essentially, she was like our foster child, but like not through the system, right? And we noticed that we have a lot of kids that, just like to hang out at the house, or Elijah sleeps over randomly, and things like that. And so we felt like, okay, well, me coming from a very unstable childhood and like a very unstable just life before I met Christ, and then Calvin coming from like a stable environment and just being like a solid guy, thanks to Christ, it gets like it's like a good mix of like empathy and stability kind of thing. And so I feel like that that's just something that like God has written into our stories that allows us to be able to connect with different youth. And we initially even considered older kids, but we were told to stick with the younger kids and to keep our oldest as the oldest child in the house. So actually the youngest as the oldest child in the house through the training programs that we did. But I just felt like we've had it in our hearts for a long time, especially since last year when we started that. It brought in the idea of, okay, we could do this with somebody else outside of our immediate family, family.
Yeah, and I think she hit on something really key there. The melding of our different stories. So she's much better at having empathy for people because she's gone through these things. She understands things that people are going through, and so she can be a very loving person to somebody who's really struggling to go through things. And in the case of being a foster parent, that may be the child who's gone through difficult things that she needs to be able to be loving to, or it may be the parent of the child where they just need somebody to say, hey, I know you're struggling with this, but we're going to help you through this, and we're going to help you so that you can have your child and be in a much better situation. So she's able to have empathy on all sides because of what she's gone through, and at the same time, through my story, like I was very structured growing up, and so I can help provide that structure for the child in a time when their lives are just a whirlwind, where they're going through a lot of different things and where the structure is something that they don't have.
Now, why not just write a check or make a donation to, you know, there's got to be great organizations and things around. Why commit to something that really will disrupt your life and your family routines?
So I feel like we already give, right? And we involve our kids in giving. So like Calvin did this idea of like putting the organizations on the table and like putting our initials on little scraps of paper, and they get to pick, like each scrap represents a X amount of money, and you know, they help us in deciding what charities we're going to give to at the end of the year when we do our giving. And I just feel like for me, because everyone has a different calling, I just feel like we were meant to help physically. And in teaching my kids about helping others and empathy and like different backgrounds that people come from, I involved them in this decision. So like we talked to them and we said, you know, there are kids out there who are in homes where the parents can't provide for them financially, or that their parents are abusive and hit them, or their parents are you know, involved in drugs or are bad for them and they just can't be in like that environment. So mommy and papi have are wanting to take kids in to just provide a temporary home that's a safe place so that they can be cared for and loved just like God loves us, while their parents are getting educated and getting better. So we definitely wanted to show it in action. And I think that there's nothing wrong with giving a check. I just think that, you know, God puts different things in people's hearts because there's got to be somebody who does the action too. So that's why.
There's a parable that I'm reminded of a lot when I think about it, where it's the parable of the talents, where you know, a man's leaving town and he goes to his servants and he gives them a certain amount of money and he says, I'm going to be gone for a little while, take this money and use it. And so when he comes back, you know, two of the servants had taken that money, done something with it, and you know, more came of it. And then the other servant had just buried it, didn't do anything with it, and gave him back what he had originally been given. And so, you know, the parable uses money to say, okay, this is, you know, if God's giving you money, you should be using it in a way. But I think it hits on a lot more than that, because God's given us all kinds of resources. So for our family, God's given us the ability to have a home that we have extra bedrooms in, that we have extra beds, that He's given us a home where we can homeschool our kids, where Lorena can be home with the kids all the time. And so that gives us the ability to, you know, help other kids that they're, you know, that they don't have those kind of resources. And so I feel like God calls us to do not just, okay, give of your finances. Yeah, that's a piece of it. But give of the other resources, because, you know, to further His kingdom, He's not asking, oh, just write me a check every week. He's asking for you to take on things that, you know, may be scary. I mean, it's gonna be scary when we get the first child and you don't know what the child's been through, you don't know what kind of traumas they've been through, and, you know, just trying to deal with, okay, how do I parent this child for the time that they're here? And I think that's what we're called to do. We're not called to do the comfortable thing. The comfortable thing for many of us in America would be write the check and I don't have to touch anything and I can stay away. And I don't think that's what God calls us to. I think He calls us to be the hands, be actually there, involved, doing things, and you know, doing work for the kingdom.
What was the process like coming to a decision? Was it like overnight, or there was like an event or something, or did this take a long time to decide? What did you guys go through to come to that chance?
It took a long time. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was a lot of prayer, and it was at times where one of us would say, "Yeah, I'm ready to do this. I want to do this," and at other times it'd be, no, we don't want to, we're not ready for this, we don't want to do this. And I think God's just called us at this point where we're going through so many changes around the world, in Miami, because of the pandemic, all that's going on, where it's like, this is the time, this is the time that we needed to get trained and be ready to be able to have a child in our home.
I mean, that doesn't mean that it was easy to get to this decision either, because I mean, we've had people pray for this for over a year, and I've talked to friends about this for like over a year, because like you said, we kept wavering, like one person would be okay and then I would be terrified, and just think of the worst case scenarios of having another child in the home, and like feeling like I needed to fix myself and all of my traumas before I could bring in a child so that I could help them properly and everything else. And that's just like my wanting to make things right nature. So I finally just had to just say, okay, well, I'm never gonna get everything resolved in time, and in that mess, there's also a lot of work that can be done. Like a lot of good can come out of it while I'm still the mess, and while I'll always be a mess on this earth. So I think that was part of it, just letting God just, okay, fine, we called, we did the classes, let's just go with it, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who maybe had this idea or this itch or this thought, maybe one spouse has it and the other doesn't? What would you say to someone who's kind of in the beginning stages of thinking about foster care?
Pray all the time. I feel like that's what's gotten me to this point. Just prayer, myself praying, Calvin praying, and our friends praying. So.
I mean, prayer is huge, and I think you have to go into it with the mindset of, what I do on this earth is a lot bigger than me, and so if you're feeling a pull or a tug to do something, it's not a coincidence. I think God puts it in your heart and helps guide you towards that, and the things that you've been through in your life will help guide you to that. And don't let the fear of, okay, what could this change in my life, and the worry of, okay, if I take this on, like, I can't have these things or I can't do this. Like, I think the mindset has to be, this world is just a temporary home for me, and I'm called to advance the kingdom in whatever way God calls me to do that. And if that's through helping a child through a hard time, that's all you can do, is what God's calling you to.
Now, have you guys had a child placed at your home yet?
Not yet.
No, not yet. What do you imagine it's going to be like? Like, what is your thoughts as you look forward to it?
I would say I know it's going to be hectic, just because of like the experiences that we've had before with taking in other people into our home, and some of those people had gone through traumatic experiences that we had to take them in because of it. And if you look at it like taking in a child who is much younger and dealing with those kind of traumas and still developing so much, like it's going to be rough. I mean, I think that's my expectation, is that, okay, this is going to be really hard, but we got to work through it. And it's not going to just be hard on us as parents, it's going to be hard on our kids, because our kids have to figure out, okay, how do I deal with another child in here who isn't used to the things that we do.
I think the focus too is like, no matter what happens, like, we are there to show the love of God. And just like we're there to show the love of God to our children so that they can feel safe in that, I want them to feel the love of God through us. So even if it's hectic and crazy and like completely disrupts our schedules, just to keep in mind, like you said, this world is temporary, these schedules are temporary, but like that soul is forever. And just have that focus in mind. We're doing His work, and I'm here to show His love. So I'm not like too worried about it anymore, but I was for a long time.
Yeah. What part of your training process did you think was most valuable?
For me, the part of the training that helped the most was they had several sections on how you deal with trauma that children have gone through, and so like how you guide them through different things, and even how you as a parent like show empathy to them, like understanding the child, and like, okay, he's reacting or she's reacting this way because of something that happened. They're not doing this because they're bad kids. They're doing this because this is how they've learned. This is how they've, coped with things before. And so those trainings to say, okay, this is, if they're doing this, they could be reaching out for this need, was huge, because you don't get taught that as just having your own kids or learning through your own parenting. So having a kid just placed into your home and not knowing all the background, I think the training within trauma will be key. So.
Well, and then also just listening to the audiobook, The Connected Parent or The Connected Child, it helps you even more in understanding how these kids respond, and just how when you have gone through trauma, your brain immediately reacts in like a fire alarm, like the house is burning down kind of way. And so just understanding that and allows you to have a little bit more like empathy and grace towards how the child responds, and not say, okay, you shouldn't be reacting like this. It's more like, how can I teach you how to calm down and not be react, because I'm learning that from my own reaction. So I think that also helps.
So you guys are taking on a very big mission, very difficult and a big obstacle. But we as a church, we're here. We're here to help, and we're here to assist. So what can we do to help you in this process?
I think we definitely need prayer. It's going to be a difficult journey, so prayer is huge, and just showing empathy to us when things don't go as planned.
And I would also say, we are going to be involving the kids that we take in our church life. So like when we come on Wednesday night, Sunday morning, just the same love that we feel from you guys. It would be great if you extended that love to those children and to the parents of those children. Like if we were to invite them to events and things like that, if they were able to feel that love of Christ and that non-judgment. Just keep in mind, we don't know their story, we don't know their full story, we don't know what happened to them to lead them to parent that way, that they had to have a separation or whatever it is. So just to keep grace in mind and forgiveness and how we are forgiven by God, and show that grace to them in every interaction.
All right. Thank you guys.